Dr. Alan Cooper. Welcome to Inspiring Playful Evolutions. This is a podcast that I put together to bring different modalities to people during these crazy times, alternative modalities, different health and wellness modalities that they might not necessarily see running through the mainstream. And I'm very excited to have you here today.
I'm excited as well.
Great. I invited you because I had done a session with you. I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And during that time, well, previous to that time, I had been I've explored so many different modalities. And so I have a good gauge on, what is kind of working and what's not working. And after doing this session with you, it was a short session. We only did one session. It was about 45 minutes long, called Primal therapy. And there was so much transformation that occurred during that session. And the months that followed, the 2-3 months that followed, that I just had to bring you on to share this with the world and hopefully, bring others to your doorstep so that you can assist them with this type of therapy. So, and also you've published 5 different books. And, I don't have them all written down, but maybe we can start this interview with, you can just introduce yourself and let us know, a bit about your journey and how you came into doing the primal therapy sessions.
Okay. My name is Alan Cooper. My full-time gig is I work at 3 medical clinics. I'm a chiropractor. So there they call me Dr. Cooper, very respectful, really wonderful. Or they scream out, "Coop, your patient's here." So I'm Coop or Dr. Cooper. Usually don't go by Alan. So, and just super interestingly, way back when I first went through chiropractic college, my entire purpose to do that at that time was to become what they call a Reichian therapist. And that isn't Reiki, R-E-I-K-I, Reichian, R-E-I-C-H-I-A-N, Wilhelm Reich, based on Wilhelm Reich. And Wilhelm Reich was he was a student of Sigmund Freud. So it started out, it was like psychology or psychiatry, but Wilhelm Reich was the first one, or the famous one, who branched off into the body and said, you cannot work out problems just in your head. You cannot, because your head may start to understand, but the body, through what he called body armor, muscular armor, the body has tightened against the flow of full life inside of it, because out of fear, different fears and I'm afraid of life, I'm afraid of my parents, I'm afraid of the opposite sex, and we tighten and we literally begin to breathe less, etc., etc. So, but anyways, Reich's famous students, so Reich's a student of Freud, he goes off and his famous students were Arthur Janoff, who did Primal Scream. And that was a famous therapy back in the late 70s. And John Lennon made it particularly famous because he went through Primal Scream therapy and then made a whole album, of all his feelings about. So it was a deep. And then his Reich's other famous student was Ida Rolfing, and a lot of people have heard of Rolfing. So between the idea of a primal scream, letting some feeling come through that physical armor and come out, and Ida Rolf's work of digging in and helping open up, physically helping open up the armor, you get some idea of this work. But here, like the session I did with you and the work that I'm doing right now, some is over Zoom sessions. So I'm obviously not there digging into your muscles. And how are we, say, accomplishing some primal release we are doing that through a breathing technique. We are, I, as you remember, I'll have you lay down. You're laying down on a bed. I'm watching you through the Zoom. And I'm starting to direct you into this big, free breathing, like you're breathing in, making a sound, dropping the breath. And as you do that, the body starts to go into its unconscious, more open breathing, oxygenation of your cells. And when that energy builds up from the oxygen, when you build up some power, you can start to have a powerful feeling of a release. It all doesn't have to be primal scream. Sometimes people cry. Sometimes it's all very quiet, so I go into it as if it's always, my little joke I'll tell patients is, some men like getting underneath the hood of a car. I like getting it underneath the hood of a soul. I like just going in, feeling, and then the work I do is half from what I know and half just that I'm surrendering to the mystery of life. I'm going more towards, I think, what I don't know than what I do know. I'm just going towards like what is happening, and this piece of life, this soul and mind and heart and body and that's before me. How will I, how can I touch it in a way to move it a little bit towards evolving itself, and therefore in a quantum way evolving the whole species. So that's some beginning of maybe I'll wait for questions so I don't just ramble on.
Well, no, that was wonderful. I thank you for kind of sharing how, the different teachers that brought about this work. And when I did the work with you, I felt that you were in that liminal space, right? Of just kind of being open to what was arising. And because of that, I felt safe to express myself.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's also pertinent during these times that I felt safe doing that with the masculine. That was also a big gift during the experience. So thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's a very big part of my work, a big part of my writing and my exploration. I almost feel like this morning before we got on, I'm working on a writing project. There's a movie script I'm working on right now. And the whole thing, it's all about the female and the male. It's all going way, like again, as I had said, Reich is a student of Freud, and Freud made it seem like all adult problems are because your mommy didn't kiss you or your daddy touched you inappropriately. Those create pains. But I go back to that the primal pain is Adam and Eve, and whether they were actually two people or not, but the archetype of the male and the female, the cosmic energies, the yin and the yang, the like astronomers say that before the Big Bang, everything was in this primordial, almost like one black hole, but it was very, very dense. And astronomers say that literally, if you could find a spoonful of that energy or a spoonful of a black hole, if you took a spoonful of the black hole, it would weigh the same as our sun weighs. Like one spoonful of darkness weighs what a whole. So, and that darkness, that spoonful of that dark, that's the yin. So that the female energy is this huge energy. Adam, way back, gets intimidated by that energy, and for reasons which I've used 5 books to try to answer to myself. It turns out that they have Adam lord over Eve, because if not, the male energy only, again, a whole sun, a male sun, it's this thing you see and feel and makes light and fire and yang energy. it's equal to one spoonful of yin or female energy, so that this energy is so intimidated by the hugeness of the female energy that so all the traumas that have come, that men lord over women, men are petrified of women, men kill women, you know, all this stuff because they're in panic and have to rule and are, you know, so we always go back and we say, well, men are taught this, but yeah, initially, one day it had a beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to go in each person as you're going through your session, in a way I'm a little bit consciously and somewhat unconsciously going back into that archetype of, you know, you are Eve, and yes, I'm a male therapist, so I'm meeting you as a little bit of an Adam trying to do a better job, trying to undo some of the primal wrongness between male and female. So I'm trying to come in, and so if you say that you felt trusting and open, then to me that's thrilling. You know, that's just a sign, two good signs. One, that I'm closer to doing the good work that I want to be doing as a male on myself. And then then since I'm a human in this life, that then in the work that I do on others, that work like that, approaching you, that work was fruitful. You know, I mean, that's thrilling to me. I never have enough ego built up that it goes into my ego like, yeah, it's because I'm a good therapist. You know, I never. I'm always just super happy. You know?
Yeah.
Super happy that I touched you, you know, in a good way.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few things coming to mind, and one of them is that force that you're talking about, the yin, and how it's you know, it is this kind of black box or infinite. It's this yes. Void, right? And that's something that I've always had a lot of fear about or towards within myself, because when I feel it coming on, when I go into it, it is just so overwhelming and so powerful within myself. And it's very chaotic. It's a very chaotic energy. And so I've tried to limit that energy from, you know, and we worked on that a little bit in the session. We talked about, I told you about those fears and kind of moving. It's like the snake, right? The snake, and trying to repress the snake, but the snake brings life into the world. It's that creative force that needs to arise in order to, you know, in order to create, to heal, to, you know, to basically individuate ourselves, right? And so, so I can't be afraid of it. But this theme is still kind of playing out a little bit since that session, and you know, it has been most of my life. And the archetype of Lilith, the Lilith archetype,
yes, my God,
reappears a lot, especially you know, with other men that I'm interacting with and their fears of Lilith. And so, is there anything that you could say about the Lilith archetype? Because you spoke of Adam and Eve, and I'm curious about your thoughts on Lilith per se. Yes,
thank you. Those are beautiful questions. And now as you're talking now, I remember a little bit more our specific session and that feeling, because I'm getting it again of like, you know, that I'm talking to a soul. I'm not just talking to a human being right now. And that there's something like that we could be doing right this moment, you know, that is beyond just sharing words. So yeah. Well, first, let me start with the snake, which because you mentioned the snake, and then I'll morph into talking a little bit about Lilith, which I don't know so much about, you know, but it's in my. Yeah, so the snake, like you say, the snake is what comes, and well, okay, so starting with the story. So here's Eve. Can I go to Eve just for 1 minute more?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Because maybe it's all Lilith and I just don't know, you know, the word. So, or I won't even say Eve, so, but archetypal woman, you know, the beginning woman. In the beginning, just like animals, when animals have sex, they're not, you know, the male isn't buying flowers or candy for the female. He's just like all of a sudden takes her, you know, the male's taking the female, and whatever happens is happening, the procreation and an energetic something that we don't quite understand because animals don't tell us how it feels, and maybe we're not sensitive to. But anyways, in the beginning, Adam is primal males human is taking the female the same way. It's all unconscious. Somewhere, as I see the story, she is destined. The female Eve's out in a field or something. One day she's collecting berries and she's naked, like all the animals are naked. And she's just laying down, taking a little nap, and a snake comes along, literally touches her genitals, and she is awakened. And she, from that point on, she won't, when Adam goes to unconsciously grab her, like, time to make, you know, time to have sex, you know. She's, whoa, 1 second, you know, I've been made aware of what of this power inside, and here, feel this power, and touch me in this powerful place. Don't just take me and then be done, because that's how the bees do it and the bulls do it, and you know, we're different. And yeah, and he's overwhelmed by that, and she is shamed for it, and the snake is hated for it. And yeah, so she's blamed for exposing a sexual depth, you know, that makes Adam feel reality. And the reality is, again, in the cosmos, the male energy is, astronomers say it's about 1/10. Like 90% of the universe is hidden dark matter, dark energy, black holes. It's more like 91, 92, maybe 8% is male energy, is yang energy. So he feels reality that this huge thing wants to bring him in, and he's overwhelmed, and she's blamed, and she's hated. But the snake is another form of male energy that did its thing and was hated for that, and didn't, you know, so part of what I'm working on with the male energy, and myself mostly, is how to bring the snake, how to be the snake, and then not be ashamed, not be afraid that I'm aligned with the female, that I'm not aligned with the male energy. I'm not aligned with Adam. I'm not aligned with the fear of women. I'm not aligned with the hatred of women. I'm aligned with the snake that came to Eve, that comes through you, that you conjure, that you feel. I'm aligned with that piece of the male energy.
Mm-hmm.
To Lilith, yeah, maybe you have to tell me some more about. I mean, I only know that she was hated and castigated and cast aside for her sexuality. So I don't know how it's different than what I just take as the archetype when I say Eve, you know. So please maybe you'll give me a new hint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was wonderful. I just like to say, before speaking about Lilith, that I feel where I'm at with the snake, like I like looking at that energy as a snake, right? And as just an energy to identify with, that is primordial, right? Because it kind of removes the ego, and it removes all these layers. It's an energy. And so where I'm at right now with it is allowing myself to explore the snake, allowing myself to feel that energy of the serpent without it consuming me entirely and taking over my whole life. So I'm playing on that level with that energy because I experienced when it took over entirely. And it is such a powerful energy. It just sort of blew through everything and destroyed everything in its wake. And so I'm learning now.
Can you tell me a little more about that? Are you, is that fitting, or should we save that for more private time?
No, I think just like, I could, in a nutshell, I had started doing a lot of different spiritual practices, and I had a spontaneous kundalini awakening. I wasn't trying to evoke it. It was just something that occurred naturally. I was connecting a lot with nature, and I was doing a lot of inner work, breathing, yoga, that sort of thing. And it just erupted, and it moved through my whole body. Like my whole body became electrified from, one day to the next. And I was walking around like a live wire. So everything that I touched was just transformed, including myself, my family life, everybody in it. And it wasn't necessarily destructive in the sense where I was, arguing with people or that sort of thing. It was just this force that was moving through me. And it was a pretty negative experience because it came through really quickly and my body was just shaking. My hands were shaking. I was having spontaneous laughter, spontaneous orgasms. Like it was really powerful. And, there's different, I guess, levels or gradients of this kundalini awakening experience that people have. And so mine just went from 0 to 100. And so it sort of burned through my system. But what it did do was it activated my mind. It shot up my spine and I just started writing. And then I couldn't stop writing. It was this, I had to release all of these different aspects of myself. So I explored all the archetypes within. And whenever it was, as it was moving up, it was blocked in certain areas due to different experiences, traumas. And so that's, I think, what made it sort of become more of a negative experience, because there's like a lot of water. Just imagine a water rushing, a huge water fountain rushing, and then not being able to make it through the pipe, right? So that blockage was where I experienced the trauma from the kundalini. So now I recommend to people, different things that they could do if they are having a really powerful experience. And so that was my experience of it. And it was very, it was just, it took over everything. It was so powerful that's what kind of made me fear that serpent energy. Because it's not something you want to mess with in its full force. It's just, even paranormal experiences of telepathy, constantly feeling the person that was going to call me before they called. Like it just opened up so many different channels, and that was very overwhelming. So I do now understand its power, and sometimes I don't let enough in. I'll kind of block off that serpent energy, because when it's flowing, freely and at a nice, within a nice flow, within a nice certain, pressure, it's a very beautiful experience. It just warms my body. I could feel it radiating throughout my hands. I can, therapeutic touch is just fantastic. Everything, we infuse it into everything we do. So I'm just learning now where to gauge. And what was actually blocked was in that second chakra. And that's some of the stuff that I did with you. So I hadn't been able to get to it with my writing. I hadn't been able to get to those really deep memories that were locked in.
Yeah.
And so I needed, I guess, someone in particular to hold the space, and also that type of moving the body. So when we did the therapy, it wasn't just the breathing. I was banging my arms, banging my legs. He said, you can yell, and no one ever said you can yell as loud as you want, or you can say whatever you want.
Yes. Yes.
So to have that liberty and that freedom, and then just to allow myself, I didn't know what was going to arise. I had no idea. And then, to go all the way back through my bloodline, all the way to my great grandparents, and then to feel all of those things that just needed to be felt, needed to be seen.
Oh my God.
On both sides, right? It was the hatred for all of the atrocities, and then the love and the compassion and the forgiveness. And I'd never allowed myself to feel those things for my mother, or, for anyone really in that depth. So that really was the final piece that I needed to unblock.
Yeah. What
was stuck there.
Yeah.
So luckily the kundalini energy has it's waned a lot. This is 2015, 14, 15 is when it started building up, and then 15, 16 was really, really intense. And so now we're 2021. I still get shocks every now and then, like these kundalini shocks that'll just come through my body.
Yes, so do I.
Which are beautiful when they're not too intense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if it happens to me and I'm around somebody to go, what's wrong? And I'll have to say, no, nothing's wrong. It's, it's just like, it's life. Like it's like nothing's wrong if it starts to lightning outside, if there's a thunderstorm, nothing's wrong. That it's nature and the nature of us. Anyways, I'm very blown away by, I feel like I'm hearing something from you right now, which is it's intense, beyond that this happened to you, the person, just that there's so much I want to say again to you, Jessica, just to say, okay, so I'm going to give you it's like an analogy or something.
Yeah.
Somebody just picks you up and psychically transports you to 1,000 yards beneath the top of Mount Everest. It's hard. It's unpleasant. You're allowed to dislike it. You're allowed to complain about it. You're allowed to say it's too much. But if you're destined to climb Mount Everest, it's maybe a place where you could also see the part of you that's lucky.
I agree entirely. I do feel very grateful for having had that experience. And I wouldn't have said this a few years ago or a couple of years ago, but now that some time has passed, I wouldn't take away that experience.
Yes. But again, I'm honoring that, like I say, I want to say what I'm going to say, but totally honoring, respecting, I bow down to the place where you had to go. I didn't go through that, so here I'm saying words about it. You freaking went through it. And so I'm honoring that you're allowed to say it was negative and hard and and you help teach people how to control that. All those things, that, yes, and for the sake of healing Lilith, for the sake of healing the female, I believe it's important for us to know that huge energy that was too much, that was in the beginning, that was it, that was, life went the wrong direction because there was all this energy and there wasn't, like right now, you and I are sharing some consciousness and we're building some maybe new understanding, right now in both our brains, in both the DNA and the molecules of our thinking selves, like some stuff's going on right now. And maybe we're building a new thought that this is a little bit of how we can, in a quantum physics way, create some new thought that heals stuff. So
I agree.
Yeah, so I'm just saying to you, I feel like what happened with you is also puts you on the journey, you know, the hero's journey of you know, and again, I can be a little bit of I can do one of the good things male can do, which is, you know, I can help define like I'm doing right now, and then tell you, you know, this just be a cheerleader for you, you know, and say, this is amazing what you opened up. And just in my paradigm, and it doesn't have to be that what I'm about saying is right, you know, because maybe, but the snake energy isn't the energy you felt. The snake energy touches that energy, so it explodes and comes forth. That what you're feeling is is purely the creative, the explosive, the like the whole world is pregnant, like the whole universe is pregnant, birthing. And if you're going to feel that, and you have to feel a piece of that unbelievable creative force in your body, you know, and before the snake comes and goes, bzz, touches and meets it and helps release it. So I don't know. So that's just how.
Very interesting. Yeah. So there you've already made a distinction between the snake and that creative energy in your mind and in your work. So is there anything else that you could say about that? I'd be really curious to hear anything else about like how it's differentiated and how you differentiate it.
Okay. Well, again, using some of the archetypes, the snake is the thing that's accused of offering Eve. The snake offers Eve the apple of the tree of knowledge. She bites it. She talks Adam into biting it. And as punishment, they have to cover up their genitals. You know, so I always differentiate. It wasn't about they were given a demand and they didn't listen to the demand. They were punished. And what was the punishment? They covered up the genitals. You know, it was always of the power inside of sex. It was something, consciousness of sex. And what were they conscious of? Something that was going to be bad for the human plan.
So the snake is like the awareness of that creative force within.
I think the snake, I mean, these are all good. This is good that you're making me question, you know, what I know up until now, which is always my process. I always want to burn down the bridge and have to go off into the unknown. Can I have a minute?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Oh. Well, yeah. Yes. I believe the snake is young. You know, and the snake also is a type. I mean, all I know now is for now to partly divide in half Adam energy, male, the male with ego, the male with mission. I've got my blah, 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 and I'm so important, and I'm the guy, and you're the woman, you serve me. You know, the whole male energy and the whole planet still, you know. So there's that. And then there's this other thing that was just not only willing to go help the alchemy that set that huge kundalini free inside of you. So the snake, psychic snake, now wasn't a real physical snake, but the psychic snake, let's say the archetype comes, and it comes and it touches the female and opens it all up. But then still, what I would believe you have the possibility of doing is to undo where, so nobody likes the snake. The Adam doesn't like the snake because the snake opened up the sexuality, and from that point forward, all men are always like, have that archetype saying to women like, oh, you secretly with another guy, you with some snake? Is that guy your snake? You know, that's the whole thing. Oh, I bet you're gonna find a snake, and somebody just, you know, and so we men are always like, oh, that thing's gonna be better than me. I'm gonna do everything my whole life and try to build castles and become a billionaire and invent a cure for cancer, and yet still you'll just see some guy who's the snake and go, and he'll be better than me. You'll open up this whole thing to him. And I can't open it all up because I've got this whole thing that's built upon being stronger than the female, but it's false. It's not. So the Adam can never touch the Eve, really, but the snake has touched the Eve. But here goes, Adam hates the snake, and now Eve hates the snake a little bit because the snake is responsible for opening up all that kundalini, which makes Adam hate you. You know, so the whole male god, the whole structure of everything in Muslim and in all, not only in the Judeo-Christian religions, but I have a good friend, and she is a Buddhist nun, you know, shaved head, wears the robes, personally ordained by the Dalai Lama, you know, and she's 6'3" tall. So as he put his hand on her shoulder and ordained her, he made a joke. He said, oh, now you're going to be so conspicuous with your haircut and stuff. Whereas she's 6'3", she's already super conspicuous. But so it's this joke. But if she goes over to Asia, a man who comes into a Buddhist temple in Asia, a layman, has more standing than she does as an ordained by the Dalai Lama Buddhist nun, because she's a woman. So in everything, women are put on this down thing by all male energy except the snake. The snake has come, but the snake also wasn't logical, so it didn't ask you. It didn't, like, the snake didn't write you a letter and say, Jessica, you know, hey, I'm going to open up all your kundalini, get ready for a really difficult ride. It just did it. And maybe that's what the snake was. Whereas Adam, you start to get to predictable. He's going to do that fucked up thing and this fucked up thing. Pardon my friend. He's going to do all these things, but you get to read it. But the snake is just coming and kamikaze, just, you know, going towards the genital energy. The snake is the male thing that just isn't afraid, isn't conscious, has no thought, has no plan. Yeah,
thank you for sharing that. There's two things that are coming to mind. And one is I've been really trying to explore the distinction between that kundalini energy. So the snake that comes and then touches us and activates that kundalini energy. And then the energy of the higher force, which is more of I feel it more viscerally. It's hard to describe, but like they're very similar in sensations. And I've been starting to work with this energy. So one comes from below, the other comes from above. So one is working more like the higher force is working more between the second chakra, like the genitals and the heart. And whereas the kundalini sort of is coming up straight from that sacral area.
Yeah.
And it's more of it's life force, but it's more of a sexual energy. Whereas the higher force reaches into the sacral, reaches into the depths, into that void, but it's not it doesn't feel like a sexual sensation as much as the kundalini does. So I've been trying to explore the difference between those two. And one of the things that you mentioned about, how the man fears the snake, and then now the woman fears the snake, because it has caused so much conflict between the both. And ironically, when I had my kundalini awakening, I was I was always kind of too independent to ask for help when I needed it. So when that energy came in, what I really needed was the masculine grounding energy to ground me. But I didn't have that around me at all. And I was too afraid of the energy within me and what it was doing and how it was activating everything to even approach the male and to get that grounding energy when I needed it. So there's something in there that I wanted to share, about how I think it's the both, right? It's the positive and that negative charge. And there was something that you were talking about that was bringing about that thought. And I do believe that, that kundalini energy, when it moves through us, it does make the masculine afraid of that energy, right? So you're talking about your friend who was ordained and, she's still not considered. But then there's also the perspective of how without the masculine presence, that energy will just destroy everything.
I understand.
So I think the masculine sees that. And then that's why there's a constant feeling of wanting to be above, to make sure that energy doesn't, just, destroy everything. So I kind of get that perspective as well. And then, but the masculine who honors the feminine, even if they are, holding the space for the feminine and kind of taking that first step forward and being ahead, is okay as long as he's honoring the feminine. So there's this kind of dance, and there's, my opinions have changed a lot about the role of the masculine and the feminine in that regard, and allowing the masculine to control sometimes is actually very necessary for me to stay healthy and to be well. Right. And then honoring that and not letting that go to the wayside, because so many things have changed over the last 100 years or 200 years.
Yes. No, it's perfect what you're saying, that the wisdom that you have about the need, and then understanding the good that a male, even the atom, of Adam and Eve, even the primal male energy can be doing something good now if it's like you say, grounding, also understanding that the power that's in the female that isn't it, because a lot of male energy controls and expects, like, why don't you be like me? See, I'm logical and smart, be like me, or just so. But it feels like you're seeing the good male energy and you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I think that's a super important thing right now. Because yes, I feel over all time, women have gotten so injured by this whole thing that now they're just, for a minute, they're just often in anger and hatred, and then there's no new alchemy can happen from that. So that, I mean, it's new in that better than taking shit, it's better to be angry and hateful, but it's not what I sense, what I can feel from you, which is you're still looking for how to make evolution, in the whole alchemy between the male and female. So So just as a male who happens to be thousands of miles away from you right now over our Zoom session, you know, I could share with you that it brings hope to me for the path to evolve human understanding of this all, from what you're sharing. You know,
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we all need to hear right now. Is like finding the you know, the light is where the cracks are where the light gets in, and this
Yeah.
is like a little crack that I wouldn't have really come to recognize unless, you know, unless I had that kundalini experience. That was really what made me realize what the role of the masculine energy and how necessary and what it is, what, you know, what it brings to my life and how it balances energy, just in terms of energy. I don't know if I would have really appreciated it in the same way had I not had that experience. So yeah, so now I know that if I don't have males around me, if I'm not interacting with males for a little while on a more intimate level, I'll feel my charge diminish. You know, nothing sexual, just having males around me. I'll feel the energy kind of like move, you know, and if there's no males around me, the energy just changes completely. And then there's males around, there's things that activate and healing energies and creative energies that come to life that, you know, yeah. So yeah, we're having to find that balance with each other in a healthy way. And that's really interesting to explore this with you right now and where we're at in history and in our time.
Yeah. Yes. So just if you can take a minute, tell me what you sense about Lilith in all this that we're talking about.
I think Lilith is, from what I understand of the stories, like the folk stories or the tales, is that Lilith was Adam's original wife. He was Adam's original identical counterpart, so the identical opposite. And I'm not too sure how the story went, but somehow she acted out of disgrace, or she did something to disgrace herself in the eyes of Adam. And I think there was a part of the story where she didn't want to be controlled by Adam. And she wanted to go off and wander and learn on her own. It was like something to do with independence as well. And because of that, Adam got very angry with her and banished her and created Eve in her place. And Eve was submissive to Adam. So he didn't have to deal with that Lilith, which is truly his opposite, right? It was that equal opposite. Not equal in all senses, but equal in I guess a kind of an oxymoronish, an oxymoronic way. Yes. And so that was the story that I knew of Lilith, and now how Lilith is kind of what I hear about Lilith with astrology and, you know, through different people sharing, is Lilith is that darker aspect of ourselves, whether male or female, that could be karmic or past life or the subconscious, the shadow. This is kind of how people are talking about Lilith now, from what I hear. Yes. So it's interesting to see how that story evolved. And, you know, I feel like I am reclaiming part of Lilith in a healthy way. And it does take the masculine, a healthy masculine, to be in Lilith without Lilith being too independent or, you know, too angry or too angry. Yeah.
This is interesting. Just suddenly I see again how there's Lilith and Eve and the snake and Adam. You know, the two different male things, the two different female things. Like say Eve, the submissive, Lilith, the independent, Adam, the controlling, the snake, the more alchemic, how the snake meets the female and just says, okay, everything's on the table, but to see the four things is important right now, as opposed to dualistically, well, the good one, Lilith's the good one, Eve's the dish rag, the snake's the good one, Adam's the bastard. I could see how I still get a little bit dualistic, and through this talk, I feel like, yeah, I'm going to feel the four things a little bit, and keep on imagining how they can still break the bad spell that I feel like humanity's a lot under. I feel like we're under a bad spell, since the beginning.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like perhaps if the way that you hold space during your primal therapy sessions, right, is you're holding space for Lilith in a sense, for all that shadow and all the anger and the rage and everything.
Yes.
To feel comfortable to express itself, because
Yes.
Eve had nowhere to express. She has nowhere to express that. Like she's not allowed expressing that.
Yeah.
So to have a safe space to express it actually allows it, like, when we're not aware of the shadow, or we have no way of integrating the shadow, it just controls us from beyond.
Yes.
So this type of therapy really allows, well, I felt like it allowed me to integrate Lilith, so that Lilith isn't controlling as much from the background.
Yes.
And then to know, oh, it's possible to have this space to go and do this work, right? And then to come out and to feel more liberated and more free, and not as afraid of Lilith controlling, right, or eating away on the inside.
Yeah, thank you. Your words are clear, like good water.
So I'm curious. I try to keep these interviews short enough for people to watch, and I feel like there's so much there that we've discussed already. But the primal therapy sessions that you have, that you offer, are you still doing them online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I'm not seeking to do them, but I'm willing to do them.
Okay. So
no, just as opposed to, there's a lot of people who are desperate to have clients because they need to make a living, so I'm already making my living, so this just like this turned out to be between you and I right now is, I don't feel like I told you about me as much as I just discovered about some of these primal truths, through you and I, our discourse. So, yeah, I only want to work with people who are going like into some mysterious uncoverings, not.
Okay, yes, to clarify that.
My wish that way, as opposed to I just want any work I could get in this realm. I don't.
So what do you think people could do? Like part of this podcast is bringing different modalities to people to assist them through these times. And I think that the masculine and the feminine, as you said, working through this stuff is really pivotal for our times.
Yes.
And we're going back and we're touching this primal energy, and we're kind of remolding it and doing all these different things as we interact together. Are there anything are there any recommendations that you can give people on working with this energy, or even like a type of primal therapy they could do for themselves at home, or what sort of recommendations do you have?
Okay. So it's two different questions. There's somewhere between anybody at home could lay down and take big breaths and quiet their mind and just try to take big breaths. And if some energy builds up and they're allowed to, they can, hit a pillow, scream into a pillow, lay on your back on a big mattress and hit and kick, just have a little bit of a tantrum. And just, you don't have to have a primal tantrum or a huge tantrum, just a little bit of a, letting go of just being crazy, be silly, be crazy, be laughing, or be dramatic. You know, if no one's around, you could be as melodramatic as you want. You know, it's like you could be super melodramatic, you could be happy, crazy, yell, scream. I would say any of that can be done at home. But you probably, most probably, it's good to have somebody helping and facilitating. And I don't mean me, you know, just anybody in any major city near them, you know, either find out somebody doing Wilhelm Reich work, primal scream work, any breath work. You know, you hear there's lots of different breath works right now. And I think all of them are, you know, are good to open up. But eventually, if you open and open and open and open, you're going to find that Lilith huge energy that you discovered. And then you're going to go through all the primal feelings of, wow, that's freaking a lot of life. That's too much life. It scares me. Yeah, other people don't interact with it well. People who are in a box don't want to feel. You know, Wilhelm Reich wrote a book, you know, Listen, Little Man. And it was just about, you know, how people living in a box don't like the person who's flying out of the box, you know. And so as you opened and were flying out of the box, you know, you are primally aware of some old archetypal fears of people kill the witch and they kill the female and they hate that liberation. And it scares them because if they hung around with you, they'd suddenly be, you know, and yet what's coming up in you, what was coming up in you was the primal you. It wasn't like you ate a poison or something. It was life, you know, it was the Big Bang. It was, you know, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but
no, it's beautiful. Thank you.
You know, I always say, you know, we New Age people, spiritual people, you know, we're wont to say things to each other like, "Oh my God, you're just like the sun. I feel the light and the warmth oozing out of you." The sun is a freaking 24/7 thermonuclear explosion. That's what the sun is. You know, you tell somebody you're like the sun, you were like the sun, Jessica. It was 24/7 thermonuclear explosion happening in you, and it doesn't feel so fun. It's not like as fun as going to the movies, you know, or Disneyland's more fun than being a thermonuclear, you know, so that there'd be some negative opinion of that, of course, but ultimately, then what you've done since 2015, and like you say, having male energy around that grounds it and meet it, and bringing other forces from other chakras and all these things. So I forget your second question. One, can people do it at home? And what was your...
and any advice for you know, just for the collective in terms of like us working out this balance?
Male, female, the male, female.
Yeah, the male and female energy.
Yes, I have a super huge piece of advice, which is, as people would listen, I mean, the only people who would hear the advice just listened maybe to a piece of what, or maybe listened to our talk, and to see that the truth is the truth's like an amoeba, you know. Let it live. Let the truth live. In other words, as opposed to, oh yeah, the truth's in a book somewhere. My guru told me the truth, or Jesus told me the truth, or the truth's written in the past. Like everything else, we're always allowing everything. If I take up piano, I can imagine next year I'll be a better piano player. But somehow with the truth, it's already all done. You just have to usually find some male who wrote it down, and then you have to study it and listen to it. And if you're really good at so my advice is, feel how here was a male and a female, you and I, and we just had this discussion and we both learned something. Mm-hmm. And to learn something. Don't seek old truth, make new truth. You know, if the old truth had been enough, humanity wouldn't still be screwed up the way it is. And I'm not negative about humanity, considering the alternative and where we came from, and that once everything was a primordial compression, and then there was a big bang, so it was either agony or explosion. We're doing great now. We make symphonies, we make dance, we make love, we make good talk, we have Zoom, you know, we're going, the cup is 10% full, you know, but we got more work to do. And there's 90% of the truth has not quite been understood yet. And I'd say, so seek the truth out there, seek it, you know. Yeah, my last thing I'd say is, one of my daughters, I have 8 kids, you know, so a lot of energy. One of my daughters one day came to me and said, Dad, you realize the word question breaks down to its 2 syllables. It's a quest ion. And in chemistry, ion, like if you have a hydrogen, 2 hydrogens, they're dancing around, and then you have an oxygen ion. Those are ions, positive ions, hydrogen, negative ion, it's called -2 charge, +1, -2. So those are ions, an oxygen ion, 2 hydrogen, boom, they make water because they have to, they're attracted. And what my daughter is saying, hey, Dad, you realize this? So I realized if you can sit with a quest ion, it will attract an answer ion, rather than feeding it fast food, new age, spiritual, like I heard this and I heard that, and we are all one. And in the end, it is all beautiful light, and all the bullshit that, you know, new age people, we've come to be as dogmatic as Christian, whereas fundamentalist as Christian fundamentalism, whereas fundamentalist as Muslim fundamentalists, we are now the new age fundamentalists, and we have all these fast food, quick little answers. Pose a quest ion about the male, female, and how did it all turn out, and just be in the void without the answer, so the answer can be attracted in from the unknown. That's my advice.
Wow, that is just wonderful, wonderful advice. Very beautiful advice, very powerful advice as well. So thank you for sharing that. And I would love to have you back on at one point, perhaps for another discussion.
I mean, we could think of something totally different than this and probably still be lit by
definitely
the search for truth.
Yeah, light up some more questions. So we'll hopefully I can invite you back with some more questions. And
thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan.
You're welcome.
I wish you a beautiful day. And
you as well. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.